Hi, I'm Shirella. And have you ever heard of Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian concept that I'm going to relate today to self-compassion? Well, one time I went with my kids one summer to a local pool where they had the funnest parts of the pool. Like there was the vortex that happened in the middle that just swirled around and around, and then an even quicker little pool in the very middle. And we had so much fun at this pool. And we noticed this boy swimming around that looked a little different, but we weren't sure what was up. And as soon as it was time for us to go, we got out of the water and I turned to my son and said, "Hey, did you grab your nose plugs? Did you make sure you have your nose plugs?" And he said, "Yep, I got them. They're in my pocket." And he had been using them, but then he had taken them and put them into his pocket. And you might wonder, why would someone need nose plugs for swimming? Well, when he was in swimming lessons, when he was just a little boy, his teacher said to me, "You know what? He just has a hard time swimming without the water going into his nose. It's just going to always be a problem for him. And I've tried to teach him all the techniques about trying to blow the water out of his nose and not having to plug your nose." She said, "I've got the perfect thing. I've got some nose plugs for him in a drawer in the middle of the pool. Let me go get them for you." And she did. And he would always just stick those right into his little pocket and button it up, so he always had his nose plugs with him, so he could enjoy the pool instead of always feeling like he's like bringing in too much water through his nose as he swam. So we were about ready to get out of the pool, and we went over to where our chairs were, and all of a sudden we saw this boy that had looked a little different. We weren't sure what was up, but now we could totally see, as everyone was getting out of the pool, this boy started to hop slowly out of the water as he made his way up to the outside edge of the pool. And we realized he only had one leg. He didn't have the other leg, and he didn't have any arms either. And all of us just had our jaws just drop open looking at this boy, wondering, how did he swim? He didn't even have arms. He only had one leg. That was the only limb he had. So we just sat there staring. It was like one of those things where you couldn't help but stare. As he went over to the little umbrella where his family was, this was an African-American boy who had probably most likely been raised by a Caucasian family. Like they most likely adopted him. This is the story that I'm telling myself. They adopted him as a little African-American baby that only had one leg. And they probably knew what they were getting into. And this was a super compassionate people. That's what the story I'm telling myself, because it would be really hard to adopt a baby that had so many limitations. But this boy proceeded to stick his prosthetic arm onto his body on one side. And he was using his mouth for everything. Okay, so it's not like he took this arm. Like he was using his mouth was like what he used. That was his tool. And so he did the same thing. I was finally able to get this arm on, and then we watched him when we're still just open jaw. He stuck on his leg onto the other side, and I'm almost telling my kids, don't stare, but I'm staring too. And all of a sudden, he's just kind of stood up and started walking like a normal boy. And then to our surprise, he walked around the pool edge. It was a round pool, and he just walked around, and he came right up to us, and he stared at us, and he looked at my son. And, I guess at this point, I don't think my son had taken his nose plugs off of his nose yet. I said it was in his pocket, but that's usually just where he kept it. But they were still on, because he came up to my son and said, "What's on your nose?" And we're all just like looking at him like a celebrity, like we have no idea how to reply. And my son finally blurted out, they're nose plugs so I don't get water up my nose. And he's like, "Oh." And then he just walked off to the bathrooms. And now he was walking instead of just hopping on one leg. And we all just kind of looked at each other and said, "What was that? Holy cow." So then I sat there musing over this situation. As you got to feel a lot of compassion for somebody who only has one leg and who could make it in the pool just fine and dress himself with his rest of his prosthetics as he got ready to leave the pool. So I thought of three things. First of all, I thought it was really curious that this prosthetic boy, is what I'm going to call him, was curious about my son's little tiny nose plug device. And I thought, how could he be concerned about this when he has these huge arms and legs to take care of for himself? And then I realized, well, he's probably just curious about the many inventions because he has so many inventions retrofitted for himself. So that's kind of cool that he's wondering about this nose plug that he's never seen anyone else wear. It's just another cool invention that mankind has created, right? So kind of you got to applaud his curiousness and that he dared come over and talk to us after we sat there and stared and watched him put all his arms and legs on. Also, our little thing, the little thing of my son's nose plugs, ended up being a big thing to him, enough that he was curious enough to come and talk to us. And we didn't even dare say anything to him about, you just put on your leg and 2 arms. Holy cow, tell us about that, which we could have done. And then also a third side effect for me was thinking, you know, we can have a lot of compassion for the prosthetic boy, but also we can have compassion on my son needing these little nose plugs to make his swimming experience beneficial. So my son actually deserved a dose of compassion. Kind of in a weird way, right? Because you're considering like big old parts of your body compared to this little nose plug. But my son did need some compassion for that, and he was grateful and glad that he was able to always keep that in his little pocket and use when he needed to swim. So then I started thinking, it's like, well, how often do we have these little things in our life that we actually deserve some compassion? For example, for me, I just have chronically cold feet, and I deal with it. I used to just tolerate it, and then I got to where I was like, I don't want to live with 9 months of cold feet. I can handle the 3 months of the summer. But I finally just went and bought new battery heated socks, new shoes that would fit the socks in them, and I just wear that all winter long, and I just get by and I'm happy as can be. And then if someone else ever sees the little battery pack hanging off of them, they're like, what do you have going on there? Or if I'm going through security and they're like, you're still putting off the metal alarm, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's my battery heated socks. I just kind of know what to do with it, and it makes my life better, right? But then every now and then I say, you know what? You deserve some compassion on this. You're dealing with cold feet, and this is what you got to do to be able to be happy. And so I can have compassion on myself for just little things. What kind of little things do you have like that you just kind of endure, you just kind of tolerate, you just kind of put up with, and you don't really give yourself the compassion of, good job, you're putting up with this thing and you're doing it. You're handling it, you're not complaining. No one really knows about it unless it happens to set off the metal detector, and we still do it. So I kind of pat myself on the back and say, good job, you're dealing with chronically cold feet. So let's talk about self-compassion and the Hawaiian concept of ho'oponopono. And this concept is one, ho'oponopono means to make right. And oftentimes it's used in the idea of relationships coming together in a better way. But what it is in the 4 steps, and then I'll explain a little bit more, is first of all, I love you. Second of all, I'm sorry. Third of all, I forgive you. And fourth of all, I love you. So now oftentimes, as I said, it's in a relationship dynamic, but what about when it has to do with you? And you're realizing, I suffer with some things and I try not to complain, or maybe you do complain. I'm not really a complainer. I don't really want the attention, though sometimes I know I need some self-compassion, especially when other people get attention and I'm like, what about me? Okay, so that's definitely the egoic part of me wanting some attention. But how about turning around and giving the ho'oponopono to yourself? So that is, I'm sorry that you're suffering with this thing. I'm sorry to the boy that he has 3 prosthetic limbs. Next, I forgive you. I forgive you for whatever made this thing happen. Whatever, why do I have chronic feet? Why did that boy, maybe he was born without his limbs. I'm sorry. No one else has to say it. It's me saying it to myself. Then thank you. Did I miss thank you? I might have missed the 3rd step. Thank you. Thank you, because thank you is that element of gratitude that puts us into a higher frequency, into a higher attitude, and ready to receive once we're grateful. So thank you to yourself for just being you, for putting up with this thing, for just doing it. And then lastly, I love you, meaning I love me. You love you. I love myself. And I am so happy that I'm able to do what I'm doing. And I am a lovable person. And I am saying that to myself. So again, to repeat, I'm sorry for me that these things have happened. Please forgive myself. Forgive me that this thing had to happen. Whatever it is. Thank you for dealing with it. You're doing great. And lastly, I love you. I love myself. So this concept of Ho'oponopono covers forgiveness of yourself, accountability for what's happening to you. So we're not going to blame other people. We're just giving ourselves some self-compassion, love and gratitude, dealing with negative emotions to be able to say, good job. You just keep doing it. And then self-reflection of kind of going back and saying, okay, this is something that is real. It's not just my imagined problem or creation. This is a real thing. And having that self-reflection. So the ultimate end of Ho'oponopono is inner peace. Whether you're doing it for yourself in these 4 steps or with somebody else, the ultimate goal is inner peace. I also believe that this Ho'oponopono of having the self-compassion can help you to be able to take care of physical problems that you might have, because instead of wishing your body were doing something different, wishing that you were handling life a different way, wishing that things were just different, instead you just accept it. It's pure acceptance of where you are. And when you're able to accept your body that way, your body says, oh, I will let go of some of that tension or whatever's causing disease and problems in your body. And you really can actually get over physical diseases. So if you can do this process of the Ho'oponopono in the 4 parts, then you can get to a point where your body says, oh, we don't need this problem anymore. I'm speaking my problems to you, and you are giving me back that self-compassion. And so then you're able to not even have those problems anymore. So what do? Well, every morning when I wake up, as soon as I wake up, I do Ho'oponopono. And I relax into my bed. And you're still kind of in that drowsy, almost theta brainwave state. And I say, first of all, I actually say, I love you, because then that helps me remember to do the process. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I breathe into my body, just breathe nice and deep. And if anywhere is feeling not very good, I breathe into that spot and just give it that attitude of the 4 parts of the Ho'oponopono. There are other things I do with my morning routine, but that's all I'm going to cover right now, because that is the most important part of giving yourself that self-compassion so that you can have that inner peace. Maybe you can do this too and have that same acceptance for yourself and find that inner peace as well. So give yourself a little self-hug. You're doing great. Remember, you're sorry, you forgive yourself, thank yourself, and you love yourself. Well, it would be really great if you could like or comment or subscribe, because that helps people to be able to find this kind of content, either mine or others, that is like this. It helps other people find that better. And if you would like to sign up for my 91-day app-based course that talks about self-love and self-care, treating your body well through good food, nutrition, through moving your body more, you may like this program, and you can go find it at www.honeydewhealthin91.com.